Hey guys, it's Daniel, licensed therapist. Andrew Tate is back. He's out of Romanian jail and he's at house arrest, but he's out there making content and the world is as it should be. And most recently, Andrew was on the Patrick Bet-David podcast and he had a long podcast. It was 4 hours and 30 minutes and I watched all of it and it was awesome. They talked about so many things from being in Romanian jail to religion and God to the Matrix. And there were so many things I wanted to react to, but what I was most curious about was how was Romanian prison for him and what did he do while he was in there and how did he handle it psychologically? Luckily for us, Patrick Bet-David is an amazing interviewer and he asked all the questions. So let's get into some of these clips and react to how Andrew Tate did in Romanian prison.
But I think the audience would like to know, for you and Tristan, 92 days in the dungeon, you're in jail, yep. your experience in there, we keep hearing about it, we read about it, but what was it like for you guys being in there?
So I'll start by saying, and I have to make this clear, that the staff in the jail were exceptionally nice to me. They were very apologetic. The vibe was apologetic. Nobody was really treating me like a criminal. There were a few guys who were icy cold, I guess you could call them. They like to think of themselves as professional, but they were just inhuman. But over time, they warmed up, and I was exceptionally nice also to all the staff. Jail was terrible. I'm going to start by saying jail was terrible, and I was miserable inside of the jail cell. It's a good thing depression isn't real, because I would have been depressed. But I think in life that you get what you give, and I wanted to feel happier, so I tried my very best to make people happy. So when the old lady would bring me my food, I would sit and say, oh, this is the best food I've ever had. I've never had food this good. Did you cook this? I thought yesterday was the best, but you managed to surpass it again. How'd you do it? What's the magic ingredient? And I ended up making friends with them. Like I had grandmas in there, the old ladies cooking the food. And by trying to make people happy and smile all the time, I started to feel a lot happier.
I think that is so heartwarming. And you know what it really tells me? It tells me that Andrew, deep down inside, really is a good person. I mean, this isn't something that you would fake. He's not being fake in there. So he's genuinely being good and kind to these old ladies and these people in the prison. And he's really trying to make them feel better. And I give him a lot of respect for that because being in Romanian jail sounds pretty awful. So the fact that he was able to be positive and kind toward people, I think is really cool and it speaks to his internal strength. And also I felt like it was psychologically interesting because it was his focus to do something positive. We only have a certain amount of time that we're thinking. We only have a certain amount of psychological space and energy. And he dedicated part of that space, or maybe a lot of it, to being kind. And you know what it did? It caused his mind to not focus on the negative things, like being in Romanian prison, the cockroaches, and all the stuff that he describes. So I thought it was really cool. I really like what he's doing here, and I give him a lot of credit. Let's keep going.
But it's kind of scary, and I think the scariest thing about jail was the uncertainty of it all. If they would have said to me, you're in jail for 92 days, or even 5 years, you got 5 years, cool, I do my time. But when you're nabbed and thrown in a cell without charge, you're like, well, how long, is this my life? Is this it now? Is this the end of the story? I'm just in this cell. And I was picked up on 29th of December. I went through this quick court case. Like I said, I'm inside of the jurisdiction of Romania, so I have to be very careful with what I say because the case is ongoing and we're in Romania and I can't leave Romania. But obviously Romanian court is in Romanian by law. So you're marched into this room, everyone speaks a language you don't understand for 15 minutes, and then you're marched off to jail. You're like, what even happened? What even happened to me? And they said, oh, here's the paper that explains it. I was like, that's in Romanian. And they said, oh, don't worry, you'll get a translation to English by law. I was like, okay, that's fine. But because I was picked up on the 29th of December and there was New Year's Eve and holidays, it was 2 weeks before I even knew why I was in jail. 2 solid weeks I'm in jail. No one told me in English why I'm in jail. I had no idea what the charge.
Can they do that?
By law, you get it on the piece of paper in English, but it's translation, it's holiday, we need to find a translator, There's a delay.
And you speak zero Romanian?
Zero. So they said, oh yeah, human trafficking. I'm like, what do you mean human trafficking? Who? When? What? What is this? Took 2 weeks before I finally got a piece of paper, and then I realized what garbage it truly was. I mean, I knew it was garbage, but I was like, this is complete garbage.
Yeah.
Man, that sounds rough. The uncertainty of whether you're going to be in jail or free, not knowing when it's going to end, must be so difficult. And when we get into difficult situations, our mind starts to wander. And where our mind goes really tells us a lot about ourselves. What I see a lot in therapy is people start from a certain place and they go down that rabbit hole, and eventually they wind up dead and alone. That's usually where they end up. In therapy, what we do is we try to think of another path, think of another way at the very beginning so we can choose where we wind up. Because most likely, 99% of the time, we're not going to wind up dead and alone. But you know what? This is a very extreme circumstance, so I completely understand why Andrew did this and where his mind was going. And it's really hard to do mental gymnastics to try to trick yourself out of the severity and the very dim prospect of being in Romanian prison for the rest of your life. And I feel like what he was experiencing was the beginning stages of grief. The beginning stages of grief are denial and bargaining. And I feel like that's what he was going through. The shock to the system of what was going on. The thing is, I doubt he was able to recognize that and understand that. And I wouldn't expect him to recognize that or understand that. Most times people don't even understand what they're thinking or feeling. And they're just experiencing something, especially in very extreme circumstances like this. And so that's where a therapist can come in handy. They're outside looking in and they can analyze what is going on in your mind. What are you thinking and what are you feeling? And how can we address that and make it so your internal experience is tailor-made so that you can move forward in the best way possible?
So, yeah, I have endless stories from jail. It was certainly, I don't think jail teaches you much new. What it does is confirm everything you already know. It confirms everything you know about the reality of the outside world, that you need to be physically strong so that you're not attacked by others, and mentally strong so you're not attacked by yourself. You learn who's on your side and who isn't. You learn who's a coward and who's not. You learn who's an opportunist and who isn't. Your circle, you certainly learn a lot about the people around you when you go to a jail cell, that's for sure. But I remember it was New Year's Eve. When I was first picked up on the 29th of December, I was very sure I'd be out in 24 hours. I was like, there's no way they're gonna keep me. For what? Like this doesn't make sense. So finally New Year's Eve rolls around, and I'm sitting in the jail cell by myself. And in Romanian jail, you don't leave the room. It's not like an American jail where there's a yard or anything. You're stuck in the room. It's 3x4, and that's your existence. You just stay in the room.
Are you by yourself?
24 hours
Tristan?
a day. At the beginning, I was by myself. And you're stuck in this room, and I'm sitting there. It's New Year's Eve, and there's a very faint speaker, maybe way down the hallway. The guards must have been having a little party for New Year's Eve. And there's this awful song. It's called the Ketchup Song. I don't know if you know what it is. I don't want to sing it, but it goes, hey, hey,
of course.
That
Yeah.
super annoying song.
Hey man, hold up. Have some respect for this song. I mean, it can't be that bad, right? Okay, he's right. That song is pretty bad. Don't get that song stuck in your head. That's dangerous stuff. Please continue, Top G.
And I'm sitting there, and I know it's New Year's Eve because the fireworks start going off. And I'm looking out my tiny window, and I can just hear in the very long distance from the end of the hallway, hey, hey. And I'm sitting there looking out the window like, this can't be it. This can't be the end of my life. Even the cockroaches all over the walls didn't celebrate. There was maybe 15 cockroaches on the walls, right? And when it struck 12 and the fireworks went off, I kind of like, well, who's my friends in here? The cockroaches. I looked at them, even they didn't move. I was like, well, that's New Year's. It's funny because before that, a couple days before that, me and Tristan were discussing, do we want to do New Year's in Dubai? Do we want to go Courchevel? Shall we go Miami? We're all arguing, oh, that'll be boring. That's too far. We had all these grandeur plans. Oh, finally we decided to go to Dubai. We were in Czech Republic at the time, and we decided to go to Dubai, and I said, let's stop in Romania so I can repack a suitcase. So
That's it. That's the only reason.
That's the only reason. So jet left Prague, landed in Romania. My jet was still on the runway. Came here overnight to pack a suitcase, spent the night, spoke to Greta with a pizza box, and it's 5 a.m. they got me.
I try to put myself in his situation, and I can't help but think that that is such an intense moment, that your psychological ways of coping must be taxed to the limit. And the psychological load that he must have been experiencing at that time must have been tremendous. And the thing is, when something happens so suddenly, it adds to the load. I think about people who pass away. If someone's really sick and passes away, then the loved ones around them have been able to prepare. And even though they go through the grieving process, it's still a little better than someone who passes away suddenly. When it happens suddenly, there's no time to prepare. And so the psychological load oftentimes just overwhelms people. So I think about what he's gone through, and it must have been a lot, especially since it was so abrupt. So the fact that he's able to handle it, manage it, and come out and sit here today in this interview is actually very impressive. And I think, again, it speaks to his internal strength. So I give Andrew a lot of credit here.
I mean, there's so many stories I can tell. There's so many different ways I remember it. There were times I laughed. I will sit and say some of the best days of my life were in jail.
Get out of here.
Yeah. And some of the worst days of my life were in jail. But there were days where me and Tristan, when we were finally in the same cell, there's times we laughed like we've never laughed before. I'll sit and admit that's absolutely not really true. I feel like if you're going to be the kind of person who strives for an exceptional life, which is what I am, I think I'd be a coward if I said I want an exceptional life, but I only want it to be exceptional in a good way. I don't think that's genuine. I want an exceptional life. And exceptional means away from the norm. And away from the norm means flying your Bugatti on a jet to Dubai and taking your own plane to meet it there. And it also means a Romanian dungeon with cockroaches on New Year's Eve. They're both exceptional experiences. And the times I was with my brother and it was just him and I, we truly had some genuine days where we laughed like we always laugh. Me and him laugh and have fun on a private jet, and we laughed and had fun in a Romanian prison cell because that's just who we are. And I also have to give my brother some credit while we're here. I would like to state that I absolutely, genuinely believe I have the best brother in the world. And I'll tell you why. I always knew I had the best brother in the world, but he proved it in jail, and I'll tell you why. My brother was put in jail for being my brother. He hasn't said any videos. He hasn't said anything on the internet. He hasn't said any of the things I've supposedly said. The Matrix isn't attacking him. The BBC doesn't print about him, nothing. Why was Tristan Tate in jail? Because it's Tate brothers. So they just took him and threw him in a cell. Now what's interesting is, when I got out of jail, so many people near me got heat. Old business partners got heat with the tax. They got hit with like tax paperwork, and they were calling everyone who's ever known me, and ex-girlfriends got heat, and all these people got heat. And some people complained, some people didn't. But some people were like, oh, since you've been in jail, it's been so stressful for me. The media's outside my house. I'm like, stressful for you? I was in jail. What do you want me to do? And people were complaining at me. And as these people start to complain, I sat there, I said to Tristan, you got thrown in jail purely for being my brother. And never for a fraction of a second did you even moan. Not even for a fraction of a second did he say, oh, they only put me here because of you. Why am I here? I'm innocent. This has nothing to do with me. Nothing. In fact, he said the absolute opposite. He said, I am so glad I went to jail with you. I would be furious if they sent you here by yourself. If they're going to lock you up, they better lock me up. And there was a time, about 2 months in, because there's less media pressure on Tristan, they were talking about releasing Tristan first. And he was saying, no, I won't leave without Andrew.
Going down with the ship.
I won't leave unless my brother leaves. Wow. I won't leave. And he was telling the guards, I won't leave. Keep me here. I'm not leaving. And they said, the judge says you have to leave, you have to leave. He goes, then I will stand outside the gate. I will sleep outside. I ain't leaving this jail. And our lawyer said, well, we can make an appeal to just release you because there's less media scrutiny around you. And Tristan's like, no, Andrew's in jail, I'm in jail. Refused to leave. He was adamant he had to stay. That's a brother for me. And it was the same for me. I said to Tristan, if they came into me and said, Andrew, go home, I'd be like, no way. If Tristan's in jail, I'm in jail. We're in jail together. He never for a second complained, never bitched, never moaned. And he was only in jail for being my brother. And then I come out and there's other people, oh, they sent me a piece of paper, blah, blah, blah. You're moaning?
I don't know how people see this relationship between Andrew and Tristan. Obviously, they are very close. Some people might think that they are too close. Psychologists have a word for this. It's enmesh, when the relationship is just way too close and there isn't those boundaries and separation between individuals. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I look at this relationship and I really like it. They're so for each other and they really support each other. And I think it's actually really beautiful. But I think you can see how Tristan is actually a huge part of Andrew's psychology. He really adds to his internal world and how he experiences the world. Imagine having somebody that is gonna be in jail with you. Not just that, they have the opportunity to leave jail, but they stay in jail because they love you so much. I think that that is an incredible asset that Tristan and Andrew both have with each other. So it's obvious that their relationship was a boost to them and that really helped them get through Romanian prison.
It's unbelievable. You truly learn, like I said, jail confirms everything you already knew about the world, and you truly learn who's on your side and who isn't. And that's good to learn, but it's actually crazy. The larger psychological analysis of it all, everyone lives inside their own minds, right? So it's kind of crazy. I came out of jail, and some of the first messages I got from people was them complaining about the problems me being in jail had given. Like, you think that wouldn't happen, right? You think, oh, you come out of jail, people would be like, oh, are you okay? They're like, oh, you're okay? You're out now? Okay, yeah, well, listen, Mo. You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed. And I'm like, I was in jail. What do you want me to do? Yeah, that sounds unfortunate. I was in your jail cell. What do you want me to do about it? It's kind of crazy how much everyone's kind of self-interested. So it's been a learning curve, and you learn a lot about a lot of different people, and your circle gets smaller. And I think that's probably one of the reasons God put me in there, to just learn a lot and make my circle smaller. And you just have to listen to him and pay attention to it and say, okay, right, you're off, you're off, you're off, you're on, you're on, you're on.
Once again, I try to put myself in Andrew's shoes. To come out of Romanian prison, which sounds pretty terrible, and then to have people complain to you because you weren't there to put out their fires, sounds pretty irritating to me. And I feel like that must have really sucked for him. It must have been really disappointing. The thing that irritated him was that they were all complaining. And I think some people can look at Andrew and say, hold on a second, you're complaining about them. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I don't think he's complaining about them. I think he is getting emotional about it. It must have really hurt. It must have been annoying. But he's just telling his experience. And I really like what he does. He takes it as a positive. He takes it as a learning moment. He thanks God that this happened so that he knows about the people around him. And I think that is a great way to approach things. When something bad happens, we take the positive and say, what can we learn from this experience and how can we grow? So I really want to commend him here, and I think he did a good job.
But my brother, I have to give him credit, because I tell you, I also think me and Tristan are one of the best teams in the world because we have different roles inside of our brotherhood. My role is to be concerned and to panic. Not panic, that's the wrong word. I never panic. My role is to be concerned and try and fix the problem. I'm in jail, pacing up and down. How do we get out? And Tristan's role is to not care. And together, that helps us achieve the objective best, because when we really need to get out, I'm in charge. His role is to not care. Sometimes, when it was at the height of frustration, I needed his superpower. Tristan's superpower, and this is his superpower for life, is he is the master of not giving a fuck. We would go to court. Imagine this. You're in jail, right? Weekends were the worst, because the TV was worse on weekends for some reason. Like you had like 3 channels, and the weekends were the worst, and you could hear out the window everyone having fun. I hated weekends. So when a Friday would roll around, I'd say, okay, Tristan, we just have to zen away the weekend. And on Monday, there's court. We just have to zen away the weekend. So for the weekend, we just sit there staring at the wall. Intrusive thoughts, you can't sleep, all those things you're trying to get out your brain, just sitting in silence because the room's tapped, just staring at the wall. And you think Monday would never come. And Monday would eventually come, right? Or Sunday night comes, and 8 a.m. on Monday, they're going to take you to court, and they might let you go home. You've done nothing. This person in this room can decide if you go home. And it's Sunday night, and you can't sleep, and you're awake all night long. There's no clock, but the seconds feel like hours. You're just sitting there. Eventually, 8 a.m. comes. Put you in handcuffs, walk you to the court. You walk in there. Everyone speaks Romanian. Don't have a clue what's going on. Everyone's just talking at each other in Romanian. Then they say, you'll get the answer in 3 hours, go back to jail. When I went back to jail, I was sitting in the room. I was like, do I pack to go home? No, that's too optimistic. Okay. But you're nervous. You're anxious. Am I going to go home? Is it over? Do I get to go home? I called the lawyer. Do you have an answer yet? No answer yet. Okay. Sitting there. I can barely sit still. Tristan finishes court, walks straight into the room. It's a matrix attack. It's bullshit. I'm going to sleep. And went to bed. Clean asleep. I was like, how the fuck are you asleep? He didn't care at all. He just went straight to bed. And then when he woke up like 6 hours later, matrix attack? I'm like, yeah, you thought so. And just rolled back over. Didn't care.
But it's perfect for a guy like you.
But that's what you need. I need that.
I agree.
Because if I had someone else next to me as hyped as me, I would have gone insane.
I agree.
I need someone like him who's just like, he had the superpowers like, bro, I love jail. Jail's great. Look, we got coffee. I love jail. None of my women are messaging me. I love jail. I'm telling you, I had 45 minutes on the phone a day, and I used all of my minutes. Tristan never made a single phone call from jail.
Get out of here.
Not one. I was like, Tristan, do you want to speak to anyone? Nah. Sit there watching Romanian news. Didn't give a shit. Like bulletproof. But the only reason he's so bulletproof that way is because he knows I'm doing the absolute best the other way. He couldn't be that way if I wasn't trying to get us out, because then he would try to get out. You need the yin and yang.
You know, it's really, I feel like, sweet and touching to hear Andrew talk about his brother like this. It is so obvious that Tristan just helped him tremendously in jail. And you can really see how they work as a team, and not just as a team, but as complements, almost as like polar opposites that fit together. They talk about the yin and yang, and the yin and yang is a symbol that creates a whole circle with two separate parts. And so that's what they are. They're two separate parts to create a whole, and their different roles cause them to divide the psychological load. One person focuses on getting out, the other person focuses on not being anxious and basically eating yourself alive from the inside. So it works out really well for them, and it really shows how they got through this prison experience relatively unscathed. But I think it begs the question, what if you don't have a Tristan in your life? What if you are a yin and you don't have that yang? What are you supposed to do? Well, you have to develop that yang. You have to develop that way of going through things, even though you may see things from one certain point of view. And this is what I do with clients. We look at their current way of operating and thinking and approaching things, and we have to analyze that. And we have to replace things or discard things that aren't working for us. We have to tailor their way of thinking, their mindset, or their collection of beliefs, or their narrative and self-identity to be able to move forward the best way possible. So the Tate brothers are blessed to have each other. Not all of us have that luxury, but we don't necessarily need to have that. And I feel like if one of the Tate brothers weren't there, they would be able to develop that by themselves. And that is something that we all need to do. We all need to look at what we're thinking and how we're approaching things to be able to move forward in the best way possible. And that's where I feel like therapy can be a benefit to a lot of people. Anyways, this was fascinating to watch and fascinating to react to. The podcast was very, very interesting. I'm probably going to react to other things in the podcast. But for now, I just want to thank you guys for watching. Tell you guys that you're awesome, and say if there's anything else that you want me to react to, I'm gonna try to get to it, but leave it in the comments below. I have a significant list. Thanks for watching, you guys. See you next time.